Hi friends, me Suze from the Third Cosmic Ray in St. Louis, Missouri. Today I want to cover something that's kind of embarrassing, and I really never knew how proud I was of that embarrassment. So anyhow, this war and fighting and discord that's been going on throughout time, I was surprised, I guess, when I found out that even though this country is more than 200 years old, that we've had less than 200 days peace, which I find absolutely synchronistic to what I experienced growing up in my family. So, on both sides, my mother and father, the family story was sketchy to say the least. Many things were hidden. Maybe some of you have seen War No More, which is my grandfather's account of World War II as a man whose job it was to write the paper that came home from the end of the war. And as we tie some things together and we look at some synchronicities, I'm going to illustrate how what I've always known to be true in the deepest places is absolutely verified. And I hope that for you, as you begin to life chart and put the pieces of your family together, that would bring you healing. So we'll start here with how embarrassing the last name of Glascock was. I'm sure you can understand that. And when I was a teenager and I still lived at home, my dad, the policeman, was very interested in his illustrious surname. And so he had sent away, and this is the first edition of the Glascock Quarterly, which was dated in April 1985. And I remember reading it as a young woman and found absolutely no interest in it. And like I said, I think I was conditioned to somehow not care about what was unknown in my family. And it was, fearful anyhow, so just let it go by, right? But my dad didn't want to spend the money to get his coat of arms, because that's old world stuff, and he had an interest in this. He had traced his kin back to Georgia and actually traveled and saw the home where those Glascocks were. But this story actually goes back to the Revolutionary War, and this kin of mine was murdered by an aristocrat. So now I look at both sides and see targeting coming from the maternal and the paternal side. And I have spent a lot of time illustrating to people through my stories how it's never personal when the people that love you attack you, nor is it personal when people that don't even have a clue who you are, through their actions, destroy not only your life, but the community and the world at large. So I'm continually praying and meditating for War No More. And this is what this is all going to be about. But in the meantime, you see in the background would be my father's life chart. So here we have my grandmother and grandfather. Of course, I remember them both. They were wonderful. And actually, if it wasn't for my grandmother's persistence and dedication, I would have none of the Glascock lineage, of course, that you see behind you, and I have a lot more. This was my great-great-grandfather, or great-great-grandfather Glascock, right? And people go, man, what kind of horse is that? And it's like, well, that's a sturdy old workhorse back in the day before there were pesticides and poisoning and GMOs and everything. You can see the land was pristine, the animals were healthy, and so were the people. We can come back to all that, but I just thought you might like to see that. This is my dad's brother, Uncle George, as a baby. Thought that was cute too. So, being that I come from a small family, and being that my family was divided when I was burned as a child, because of course they really didn't want anybody coming to see me, and I'm sure that with my big mouth I would have told the story. But, you know, what divides, say, a timeline would be fear of the unknown. And some say that all these synchronicities that I'm discovering are, say, wild or scary or freaky. But I really don't see synchronicity at all scary. It's actually healed the fear that's inside of me. Because what I can see through these stories is whether or not I know every detail to the story. It's obvious that there's a continuation of purpose. So, my grandfather on my mother's side was a recorder of deeds. And this lineage of mine on my paternal side was a surgeon. And silly enough, if you look at my role as a hairdresser, I do a lot of writing and speaking and storytelling and working with scissors and knowing how to do simple healing and homeopathy, different things like that. I can now feel that part arise in me. And earlier I had connected it to, say, the idea of other lifetimes and the karma that we bear from those times. So say, since I'm a great hairdresser now, maybe I used my craft to a higher purpose back then as well. It's also my belief that if we speak our stories, it not only heals the 7 generations back, but it heals your children and your grandchildren as well. And so, here again, it was tough, I would say, growing up without knowing these things that I yearn to know. But now as an adult, I can make sure that my grandchildren understand and understand who they are and where they come from. At this point, they only know one side of their lineage. We don't want that, do we? It's healing for the global community, because we really are all family, no matter what the bloodline is, right? Now, before we go on to part 2, because I'm going to take this in 2 sections, I have a great book here, and it's called Releasing the Prophetic Destiny of a Nation. And for you that know me, I also have a page called The Prophetic Destiny of Missouri, where they claim revival in 4 cities, St. Louis being one of them. And I do feel that that is part of my job, part of my dharma, what I give back to not only our Creator God, but to my lineage as well. So I thought it'd be interesting to see North Carolina's, because of course, I guess I probably wasn't the best student in high school. History bored me. It seemed like a made-up story. Well, now we're finding out that it was, aren't we? And so this, to me, is not really a history, because it was written in 1983, and I find a lot of relevance in that. That was the year I was in beauty school, and I was stepping into my own as an adult. So these 2, Dutch Sheets and Chuck Pierce, they went preaching And here's part of their prayer. Okay. Pray that God will redeem the land and restore the first fruits of harvest, naturally and spiritually, causing miracles with signs and wonders to manifest in the earth. Pray that God will open up the flowing of living waters we read of in Ezekiel chapter 47. Pray that we, as believers, will protect what comes in and goes out of the eye gates, ear gates, and mouth gates. Pray that God will cleanse and heal our lands, because they have been defiled by injustices, the sin of greed, and the sin of our forefathers. Pray that the spirit of perversion will be broken off of our government, and that leaders will be accountable in their words and character. We'll see, won't we? So, let's recap real quick, because I hope that I've created enough interest to get you to watch the next video. Here is a Glascock in my lineage that actually was murdered during the time that the United States of America was coming into its birth. So imagine if this aristocrat dude, bad guy, theoretically, has him murdered. Is that where this all begins? And when I say that, I mean that, during the Revolutionary War, there were 3 sides. Most people just think this side and that side. And so as the war progressed, if people were able to migrate into a middle place. And during that time, of course, divisions were drawn between families, would be split. Completely apart, because their beliefs were different. And here again, I see that now in the current day so much. So once upon a time, of course, with the best intentions, we set out to create a world where man could strive to be more than slave or chattel or sheeple. And we're looking for that time again, because if we don't find it, guys, we'll be robotized or something really unhuman like that. And myself, I'm tired of being a slave. I want to go on into the promised land. So, with that, please come watch this story unfold at Suze Pratt on YouTube. And here again, let's get into life charting, because like you can see, what a beautiful dedication to understand and come to the understanding of why our parents were the way they were. So with that, peace, love, and light from the Big Yellow House. Thank you.